All right, so today we're going to talk about our chapter 4.2 vocabulary, which really focuses on the design process and what we go through when we're coming up with a new product or prototype of something. So one of the first words that we want to make sure that we have an understanding of is brainstorming. Now this isn't something new to you. You have heard, okay, just brainstorm a couple ideas. This isn't something new to you. So now the actual definition for it is going to be is a process in which group members suggest any solutions that come to mind. And so now kind of one of those key things is while you can brainstorm on your own, it's kind of a group thing. And that's kind of why my picture, I have multiple people to talk about in a second. So for example would be your friends creating ideas for a project. You guys do this all the time. If you have a project in class, or maybe it's something outside, it doesn't need to be in school, it could be just in general, you're brainstorming ideas, you're coming up with different possible solutions to maybe a problem you have, or to improve something you have, or like I said, if you have that project and you're wanting to be creative with it, you're brainstorming different ideas. And so that's kind of what that image here is showing, is we have all these different ideas, and together we came up with an idea that's going to be better than the rest. The next word that we're going to talk about is constraint. So constraint is any factor that limits a design. So it's anything that's going to prevent you from creating a design that you want. Ideally, if you had no constraints, you could create pretty much anything you wanted, but that's not the case. Now these constraints can be in a bunch of different ways. They can kind of show themselves. The example I have is not having enough supplies for your desired design. So like I said, you could have this really cool design and it probably could work, but maybe you don't have enough supplies. For example, I know when they were building the new Viking Stadium, it required so many materials. It was really hard for anyone else to build anything or have constructions, or it was really expensive because there was a constraint to the fact that there wasn't many supplies available. And that's the case for a lot of things. Maybe a constraint is money. You may have so many funds in order to build your project, or funds that you've been given. You have a budget. You have to make sure you get all the different parts. You can't use all your money on just one thing. And so there's a whole bunch of different things that could be viewed as a constraint, and they're really the reason why ultimately we don't have these perfect machines or perfect inventions. A constraint could be some technology just isn't available yet, meaning we haven't developed it. So we could have this idea and say, oh my gosh, we could design this would be the coolest thing ever, but there's some other things that the design just isn't there yet. Or not the design, the technology for that design isn't there yet. It's not that we don't have the idea to do it, we just don't have all the parts that we need in order to make it happen. And so that's why for my image, instead of putting kind of an image of someone inventing something, instead I put this image of this guy, and he's kind of got his hands tied, he's kind of in a bind here, because that's what's limiting you. It's preventing him from doing exactly what he wants. Your hands are kind of tied. There's not much you can do about it because it's a constraint. You can sometimes make it less of a constraint, but it's never usually just going to go away. Now the next one, and sometimes this is as a result of a constraint, we have our next word, and that's going to be a trade-off. And so now a trade-off is an exchange in which one benefit is given up in order to obtain another. And so with this, it's not necessarily a trade, it kind of is, like we're trading playing cards or something like that. It's in which we give something else up for something else that we can use on our design. So my example being is I could choose to use a less expensive material that is lower quality, and that's actually really common that a lot of businesses will use, or companies, when designing a product. They'll kind of look at the number of benefits they're going to get and the amount of cost that it's going to have. So it's kind of a cost benefit thing. That's where you really see trade-off. It's not the only version of trade-off, but it's a really big one, because if you have the money to do it, you're going to use, generally speaking, the more expensive, generally better materials. But a lot of times we can't do that, so we have to kind of look at this cost benefit and see, okay, is it worth it? Sometimes you could look and like, all right, well, this costs twice as much. Is it really 2 times better than the other option? And if it's not, we'll sometimes go with a less expensive material because we get close to that same level, just it's less expensive. So of course we're going to do that, because then we could either increase our profits, or we can just create it for less money and save some of that money for other things to improve the design later. So that's kind of what we're looking at a trade-off, is generally we trade off one benefit, but we gain something else. So it's not all negative. We kind of give something else up for another benefit. And sometimes that's maybe features. Okay, we'll give up, being able to charge a little bit quicker on our phone in order to have a bigger battery, or, it really kind of depends. It can go any sort of which way. All right, our next word is going to be prototype. Now, prototype is a working model used to test a design. So now this is really important. Prototypes, I think a lot of people kind of forget about. Now there's something that's really, really, really important, especially when you're doing something that's more complex. For example, NASA, they created prototype rovers before sending one to Mars, right? They're not just going to create this really expensive and complicated robot before actually testing it out as best they can before they launch it off to Mars. I mean, they're going to run all sorts of different simulations too with this prototype, and that will help increase the success. Well, same thing with maybe, the latest smartphones. They're going to create a prototype of this, a pre-release model, something that's maybe really close to the final product, but they want to see, okay, this is what we have, is it working? And if it doesn't, then we can go back, we can kind of fix it. And actually, it's going to be a later word we're going to get to in a second here. If it works great, then maybe they'll start mass producing it. So then if it's your phone, then you say, oh, this prototype is working, it's doing what we want it to do, let's go for it, let's manufacture a whole bunch of these and sell them. It's now working. You don't want to mass produce something that's just going to have all the same issue. Sometimes you won't catch all of the errors, but usually can help you with a lot of those. So prototypes are really, really important. So if you have that prototype and you realize it's not working, then you could get to our troubleshooting. That's our next word. So our definition of troubleshooting is going to be the process of analyzing a design problem and finding a way to fix it. So with this, we have a problem. Something happens in our design that's not functioning the way we want it to. We need to troubleshoot and try to find a way to fix it. Now, this is really, really similar to brainstorming. And the difference is really where it's taking place. Brainstorming is at the beginning. You're just throwing out ideas, saying, oh, what if we did this? What if we did that? Here, you have an actual problem with that design you've chosen, some sort of maybe mechanical error or something like that, and you're trying to find a way to fix it. You're troubleshooting the issue. So for example, if a design of mine does not work, I can investigate what the problem is, right? So if it's not working, I'm going to investigate what the problem is. And so that's why I got my image right here of just really a guy using a magnifying glass. It's looking at, okay, what's really going on here? What's the problem? And so that's really kind of the deal. Is you've already designed your product, you've created it, you're trying to figure out, okay, it's not working, why? So it can sound really, really similar to brainstorming. The biggest difference is where it's taking place. Brainstorming is a very open conversation at the very beginning. You're just throwing out ideas. Troubleshooting is a little more detail focused, and you're looking specifically at your product and what's going on. All right, so now we're kind of on our last word here, and that's going to be patent. So now a patent is something that really protects your invention. So with this definition, and I know it's a little bit long, the definition is a legal document issued by a government that gives the inventor exclusive rights to make, use, or sell the invention over a certain period of time. So basically it gives you exclusive rights to whatever that invention is. It kind of protects you. It prevents people from copying your design and making a profit off it. If they want to use your design, they have to get permission from you, and then they pay something called royalties, in which they're using your design, but actually you're getting some of their money because they have to pay you in order to use that design. If they do that without, then it can be a pretty serious crime to violate a patent, and so a lot of times there'll be lawsuits on this. It'd also be similar, so patent is kind of like for an invention, Or, you guys know what plagiarizing is. That's if you copy someone's work, like say the written work. That's plagiarizing. A patent kind of protects you from that sort of a thing, but with your invention. And so that example being, many inventions have patents, such as computers, headphones, and even sewing needles, believe it or not. It's not only, modern technology types of things. I mean, sewing needles are going to have patents. All these different things that truly are an invention that people are using, they're going to have a form of patent. So here I have an image, a patent of a headphone. And you can kind of see this is really what an image of what some patents will look like. You can see it's from September 1966. You can see this patent number here, which tells you that, there's that many patents then, right? So, I mean, there's obviously, you can imagine even more and more and more and more. And this basically has a description of the design, and this is just one page, right? It's just a figure of their design. There's gonna be a whole bunch of other things going on with it. So the patent has that, detailed description of what it is, and it protects their invention, which is really important. You put in all this work for your invention, you want to make sure it's protected, and you are the only one that has access to it unless you want other people to have access to it. So patents can be really important with kind of protecting your rights as an inventor. And that wraps up our video for our 4.2 vocabulary. If you have questions about it or you're confused about something on one of the words, please do ask me in class. Thank you.